Hi, I'm Hakeem Dubois, founder and creative director of Decade Lifestyle, and today we're here with a very special guest, a very powerful woman by the name of Bertha Lewis.
People think that, organizing and groups staying together is an easy thing, for justice because of what's right. It is the hardest thing in the world, because when you have to fight the city and you have to fight folks with a lot of money, staying together as a group when you don't know what you're doing, is difficult. But we did it for 7 years, kind of became notorious. And for me, I was just like, I can't do theater. The biggest theater is right here. Out here, it's life and death. You have, the biggest villains that there are. And so this is the stage upon which I want to be. Because my own personal situation, I wound up in this world of housing organizing. And we just didn't have enough lawyers, and legal aid was overwhelmed, and you get what you pay for. So you get a free lawyer, you're gonna get what you pay for.
It's not the best.
It's not, and the court system wants to make a deal, and tenants always wind up on the short end of the stick.
Of course.
When you're organizing poor people to have real political power, then you become dangerous. Because poor people aren't supposed to vote. Poor people aren't supposed to be an organized bloc, actually holding people accountable. And so ACORN was a dangerous organization of low and moderate income people. And we were clueless that we were actually being attacked from the right. What the right wing does now, I contend they perfected on ACORN. Fake news, false information, fake videos, they perfected on us.
Well, we are the largest community organization of low and moderate income folks, and mostly people of color. And of course, any organization is not entirely perfect. I think Congress, will be looking at doing an anti-ACORN amendment and just singling out one organization. But we continue to make sure that all of our employees, if they're too stupid to understand that they are not reaching professional standards, we terminate them, and we actually make sure that, what we do internally is serving our constituents, 500,000 poor black and brown, Asian and white people in this country. So I was outraged by it. Everyone should be, and I can understand how the Congress was also.
What led to the demise of ACORN, or should I say, how are you guys set up with this fake news?
Well, it's interesting, and people really, if you don't know the history, you really need to look up ACORN. There's a documentary called ACORN and the Firestorm. But things are very simple. Tell a lie. Just tell a lie. And if you tell a lie long enough and boldly enough, then people will believe it. So of course, being a poor person's organization, they were accused of embezzlement, and what are they doing with all of this money? And they must be real communists and socialists. And there's all of these black and brown people, so they've got to be doing something criminal, a criminal enterprise. And these are folks that work in the ghetto. And so who's in the ghetto? Criminals, pimps, prostitutes. So they had this young fella who would do fake videos. Now, nobody had heard of that. You know, when you saw something, you believed it. So they did the setup where supposedly they would come into an Acorn office, a pimp and a prostitute. Okay, this is the setup.
Wow.
That's what you thought.
Yeah.
And was asked, well, we want to buy a house. Because remember, you know, we were known for housing. And we have young girls that we're prostituting. And so therefore, can you help us buy a house? Now, none of this ever occurred.
Yeah.
And so they took videos, spliced it together, created a lie. And, you know, some people you may have heard of Breitbart, which is still going today. Well, Breitbart, this online blog service website, they launched the Breitbart website showing these fake videos, and it was explosive. By the time we told people this is a lie, you know, they had a whole echo chamber. You know, Fox News, talk radio, right-wing newspapers, and it was like, aha! We always knew something was wrong. And then we had frenemies, you know, other organizations that were like, you know, they're your friends, but really, you know, you know, Acorn's too big and this, that, and the other. And we were just caught in a perfect storm. And when you try to say something is a lie, and yet there is technology, there's a video. We see the pimp coming in to your office. We see your people talking to them. We see this prostitute, and they're provocatively dressed. When you look at it today, it is so cartoonish.
Yeah.
That, you know, if you were, you know, you look at it now, you're like, ain't nobody gonna be talking to somebody dressed like that. Yeah. First of all, this is this white boy pretending to be a pimp, and pimps don't dress like that. You know, but there was this echo chamber, and it just, you know, Fox News made their bones on this. Talk radio, it became the sensation because this is the first time.
Supposed to be this been devastating for you.
It was
because you worked so hard for this all your life.
And I had become, you know, the national board had appointed me to be the CEO. So here I was, the little black girl, caught in this firestorm, having to go on TV every day and defend, you know, this 40-year-old organization and say, no, this is a lie, this isn't true, and, you know, well, it must be something. If you didn't do that, you did something.
Yeah.
So it was one of the most traumatic and hardest things. And I do have to say, you do have to get with yourself. You know, is this the work that you want to do? Being under this stress every single day, just relentless. And knowing that this is a lie, but you can't get anyone to believe you. One of the things that people that work in social justice, you can't get so blinded that you're like, I'm doing God's work, I'm really, I don't have time, you know, to think about this, that, and the other. You better think about it. Of course. Because people see you, and people react to you. And in this country, it is about power. But we were totally unprepared.
So you guys are targeted.
I reorganized all of the Acorn chapters because they had to live to fight another day. I directed all the fire toward me. And so I'm very happy to say Acorn is alive and well, It may be under different names,
But it's still the same.
It's still the same, still doing great work. I incorporated the 25 chapters, some I combined so that there's 18 national chapters now. But after that experience, it's like, what do I want to do? I don't want to do another Acorn 2.0. So, of course, Obama had been the president, and people were talking about post-racial. And when you go through something like that, you realize who your true friends are, that there was nothing post-racial, that this was all about race. And I was like, what do I want to do? Now I'm going to tell you all a little secret. I really am a secret nerd. And what I knew was a couple of things. The demographics of this country were changing, and changing fast.
Yes.
And we are hurtling toward being a majority minority country, a brand new majority, people of color. Number one. Number two, when people do polls or they do studies, they're always telling black and brown people what they think and what they should think. They never really ask us, tell me, how many times have you gotten a call from Gallup or Quinnipiac, all of these polling people, they don't ask us, but they'll say, well, African Americans think this and you're just a little tad. Nobody was concentrating on really speaking to about people of color. If we're going to be the new majority in this country, somebody better get ready to deal with a country of color. Mm-hmm. And so I knew that there were think tanks. And so I said, well, I want to create a black think tank. But it's a think tank that needs to take action. So, an action tank. A think tank that takes action. And it would be from the perspective of black people and people of color in this country and throughout the diaspora. We would take a head, heart, and feet strategy. The head being research, analysis, data, polling. But it wouldn't just be dry academics. You got to take this, and as Malcolm says, make it plain. Bring it down to the heart. All of this research, how do you turn this into policy, legislation, and train people on what this means so you have it common for the average, everyday person to understand. Yeah. And so you can have all of this intellectual, and you can have all of this leadership, but it don't mean nothing if you ain't got the feet. You got to be able to move it on the ground. Because I come from an organizing background, and that's why I call the Black Institute an action tank. You can take what you think, but it has to take action. And then when I was thinking about it, I decided that it should be named the Black Institute. I met Bill de Blasio when he was running Hillary Clinton's Senate campaign.
Okay.
I knew, I helped Bill de Blasio to run for school board, and then for city council, and then for public advocate. And, I believed in him, I knew him, I knew his wife, I knew his children. And so,
then he let you down.
For me, when Bill was at 4%, and people said, that guy can't make it. You don't back someone because you think they're going to win. Again, I'm an organizer. And so when you're going to do something, you go in knowing that you may not win. But is it the right thing to do? The only thing that keeps us going as organizers and activists, we're true believers. You gotta believe. And yeah, I worked on that campaign. I was very happy when he won. But what broke me and disappointed me about the mayor was the Black Institute, we have 4 buckets of issues. Education, we believe in public education, not the privatization, public education. Again, if we are going to be a country of color, most of the children in schools will be children of color. And we need to have good public schools. You can't just run away. You can't just say, well, public schools, oh my God, there's nothing we can do. Let's privatize. No. If you're going to fight for good public education.
That's a good point.
Immigration. My brown brothers and sisters, my Latino brothers and sisters, yes, there's an immigration issue with them, but we're not talking about Black immigrants. Immigrants from Africa, Caribbean immigrants, Black immigrants from South America, Black Latino immigrants. I'm the Black Institute, so my immigration issues are going to be about Black immigrants. We were talking about dreamers. There were Caribbean dreamers, children of Caribbean teachers. No one was talking about Caribbean dreamers. Then we have economics. And this is what did it for me. I went to the mayor and I said, Mayor, from Koch to Bloomberg to Giuliani, MWBEs, minority and women business entrepreneurs, get 4% of city contracts. 4% out of the whole city budget of contracts. We have a $92 billion budget. New York City is majority minority. And entrepreneurs, minority entrepreneurs, business people only get 4% of the contracts? Are you kidding me? So, again, we are a think tank.
Yeah.
And so we did our research, we wrote reports, we came up with the data, the analyses, and I said, Bill, here it is, on a silver platter. You can blame Bloomberg, you can blame Giuliani, but when you run on the tale of two cities, when you run on income inequality, when you run on equity, here's a prime example. So, we need to correct this. And here it is on a silver platter. And I thought, wow, I'm doing real good. And this is when I got my lesson in what I call rhetorical progressives. My good friend said to me, oh, don't worry about that. I got that. It
was all talk.
I said, you need a chief diversity officer like a deputy mayor whose only job is to correct this inequity. So no, I don't. I have a better plan. I know. I'm the smartest guy in the room. New York State is supposed to be blue. New York State is supposed to be progressive. This governor claims to be progressive. This mayor claims to be the most progressive. Now we have a new Senate that claims to be progressive. We have an assembly that claims to be progressive. Democrats, so-called progressive, control the entire legislature in the state. It is time to pass marijuana legalization. Number one, if you want to talk about, criminal justice reform, we know that black and brown folks are locked up for, nonviolent drug offenses. We know what happened during the whole stop and frisk era.
Yes.
Policeman stops you, says turn your pockets out. All you got is a nickel bag.
Yeah.
You're not dealing anything. You wind up on Rikers. And so we have filled our jails with this. These have devastated whole communities, devastating families, destabilizing communities and neighborhoods. So the war on drugs has disproportionately affected us. So one of the most important things in that legalization bill was expungement. That meant that if you had been convicted of a low-level drug offense, your record would be expunged.
Yeah.
Not sealed, not vacated, expunged.
Yeah.
That meant it never happened. It goes away. Why? Because so you do your time. So you take the punishment. You can't get decent housing. You can't get scholarships. You can't go to school. You can't get a decent job. You are locked up once again.
Yeah.
Because your opportunities are taken away.
In some cases, can't even vote.
You can't vote.
Yeah.
So, and you gotta check the box. So, one of the reasons that I really wanted the legalization of marijuana was because of the expungement, but also this is a multi-billion-dollar industry. And we need some reinvestment in our communities that suffered the most. Also, again, in my economic bucket, I'm all about minority entrepreneurs. I'll say it to anybody. I'm trying to create black wealth. And I mean that. Because, that's a form of power. To be able, we done suffered for this, and we can't even get in on the game. Like, really? We got white boys making goo-gobs of money, and I can't even sweep up the buds? Come on now.
Yeah.
So, for me, passing marijuana legalization with all the other stuff that this brand new progressive legislature could do, it was like, this is the one thing, and we have a critical mass of electeds of color up there in Albany. But alas, it was not to be. And we all know that the governor, he done even said he want to have a fourth term. I wasn't down for a third term. 8 is enough. But we know that the governor likes to manipulate and control. The first thing that happened was, where's the money going to go? The governor had it in his budget because that way he can control all of the revenue. So was it really a fight about money? Or really was it a fight about the prison industrial complex? and how that would be affected. We have built all kinds of jails upstate. Whole towns, communities, and cities thrive on the prison industrial complex in New York State. Imagine if you no longer are filling those jails with folks on low-level drug offenses. Now we're talking.
So, what is the next mission of Black Institute?
So there's like, for our 10th anniversary, May of 2020, you're all invited. There are two things that I want to do besides continuing, the mission of being an action tank and doing things in our 4 buckets, economics, immigration, education, and in the environment. A little word about the environment. Certain people are messing up this planet, and when they get on their rocket ships and they leave here and they don't leave us all down here, we need to understand that we're the ones that's going to be left, people of color. But having said that, the one thing that I talked about earlier was that there's not one company that only specializes in polling and surveying people of color. We know that there are folks who used to ask about people's ethnicity.
Yes.
If you were Irish or if you were Catholic. But we don't do that anymore. We as people of color are very varied. First, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, 10th generation that may have immigrants in our family. But unless we have an accent, you would never know. And nobody ever asks us. We fall into this vast Black African-American cauldron. We know that there are Black Latinos. What is our intersection with all of us being related? So being able to poll those folks and know that data, to drill down and ask people questions in our syntax. We phrase things a little bit differently.
Yeah. What about those who are unaware of their direct?
Then we probe and we find you don't have to be consciously aware, but we need to ask the questions about, grandmothers, aunties, grandfathers, or about religion, or, about, cousins. But you need to ask the question, because sometimes people don't know what they know. And the point is to ask the question, and to ask it in a way, in our lingo, in our language, and not to ask it in some other dry way, because we know how we talk. So imagine, again, since we're becoming a demographically changed country, imagine, if there was that in the data that we could get. And then I think we really do need to be training people. We have folks that call themselves organizers that are really party planners. I'm sorry. They just are. Or, are event people because they live, online. And the difference between mobilizing and organizing may be lost. On really how to build a base and organize that base. If you have 100 people, you don't need to organize 100 people. You just need to organize 10. And if you organize 10 out of 100, they will rule the other 90. So people need to understand those skills. We need to understand how to learn that. but they also need to understand leadership skills. And there's a lot of fake, like leadership. You come to my leadership academy, and it's just dribble. But here's the other thing, and we talk about politics.
Yes.
So the one thing that always happens is like now there's this consciousness, and I'm very happy that there's far more political operatives and folks of color who are working on campaigns. But by and large, when folks want to talk about political campaigns and people of color, they talking about the field. Niggas is still working in the fields. Yes, I said it. And we need to understand that we need to be the campaign managers. Who's teaching our young people how to actually do fundraising? Political fundraising. How to go and get big donors. What is that skill? Not just to run the field operations, but to do the targeting, the back office stuff.